to.
I know you won't find this very pleasant. It'll help you recover your strength far better than any food.
No, we can't allow you to do that for us!
He can grow back a few limbs, no problem.
You have to eat!
He was a down bad virgin with no social life until his crazy ex decided to end his embarrassing life. He thought everything was over, but when he opened his eyes, he learned he had become a filthy goblin boy. Despite this unlucky reincarnation, he makes the most of it, rizzing up every monster girl he comes across. The story begins with a fragile and weak man being stabbed to death by his crazy ex. She tells our protagonist, Tomoku, that she has waited for this day. He then dies, ending this life on Earth and starting a new adventure. When he wakes up, he sees a senile, old, filthy goblin man looking over him. He calls the baby before him Goboru, giving him a new name for his new life. When Goboru looks around, he realizes he is a low-level goblin, making him wonder what happened. He doesn't know much, but what he can conclude is that he is a goblin. By day 3 on this new world, he has already grown up to be the size of a teenager. He tells himself, even if he is a goblin, he will still use this new life to the fullest. On day 4, he is given his last bit of grub from the senile old man, informing him from this day forward he will be hunting on his own. Although he has never ventured out of the cave before today, he decides to take a peek of the outside world. Upon doing so, he finds large trees and a blue sky, accompanied by a single sun in the sky. With tons of animals and plants that he doesn't recognize, Goboru confirms that this is a new world. Following behind him is another goblin named Gobkichi, who happens to be Goboru's brother. He teamed up with his brother to venture out into the woods to hopefully find his own food. By using his brother to chase a rabbit and himself to strike it, they easily earn their first meal. His brother then tries to eat it himself, but Goboru shows him he is the boss, slapping him around. Now, with his brother out cold, he inspects the rabbit and finds its horn is a rare item. After he butchers the rabbit, they eat its meat raw. This cycle repeats for the next couple of days until they can easily take down enough rabbits to satisfy themselves. By doing this, Goboru ends up learning the skill escape, causing him to reveal his rare skill he acquired when spawning into this world. Absorption. The ability to absorb anything he eats and gain the traits of it in the process. Sadly, this was the only skill he got, so he needs to fight his way up to the top. Goboru doesn't see this as much of a problem, however, there being tons of strong monsters within this world. On day 6, one of the female goblins comes to flirt with Goboru, introducing herself as Gobmi. She is stunned by Goboru's ability to be able to defeat rabbits with ease, explaining someone died yesterday trying to kill a rabbit. After seeing her enthusiasm, he invites her to accompany them on their hunt, but it is postponed because it ends up raining. Instead of sitting around, Goboru decides to try and make a new weapon during his free time. He looks around the storage room and eventually finds a long blade that he can use to make a sword. On top of this, within the storage were various naked female humans. As a goblin himself, he didn't feel any empathy for them, so he ended up leaving them alone. Before we continue, let's take a moment to answer the question of the day. When did you first start watching anime? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out in the next video. Now, back to the recap. While working on his new sword, the senile filthy goblin approaches him, revealing he isn't a filthy goblin, but rather Gobji. Gobji raised up Goboru and gave him his name, earning him the spot as the elder in their clan. He tells Goboru that he leveled up quite a bit, allowing Goboru to finally see his level. He learns that he is currently level 86, also learning that if he reaches level 100, he will evolve into a stronger goblin. The elder explains that he was never able to level up despite living for around 20 years. The next day comes, and Goboru moves on to fighting stronger monsters, bringing Gobmi along with them. After they kill these monsters, they all eat it together, giving Goboru the new skills in the process. With tons of new skills, he thinks he can definitely take down some stronger monsters now. Despite being a goblin, Goboru declares that he will make use of his skill and become stronger than any other. On his 10th day in this world, he tries to take down some Abti monsters, but with their numbers it proves difficult. This causes Goboru to utilize the new skills he acquired, eventually defeating all of them. Like usual, when he takes down these monsters, he ends up acquiring their skills, making him stronger in the process. When day 12 arrives, there is a blood moon, causing some of the goblins to retaliate against Goboru. With him eating good every day, they try to take him down and steal his food, but they end up getting beat to a pulp. One of the goblins in particular dies, causing the others to think twice about fighting Goboru. Goblin, on the other hand, doesn't take this advancement on him lightly, strangling one of the goblins. The following day, Goboru finally decides to take on a real opponent, facing off against an orc. Like usual, by utilizing his skills, he is able to defeat it, giving him even better tasting food. After he acquires the new skills and finishes eating, he decides to present some food to the other goblins. At first, they are hesitant to eat it, getting beat up before for trying to steal his food, but they eventually dig in. With it tasting better than anything they've had before, the meat soon gets eaten up. That night, Goboru goes to sleep thinking nothing is abrupt, but he ends up getting a screen asking if he will evolve. Because he was tired from sleeping that night, he clicked yes without thinking much of it. When he woke up, however, he found himself butt naked in a new form. He grabs his spear to inspect himself and is stunned to see his new appearance. He isn't the only one who evolved, however, with Gobkichi gaining a new appearance as well. Gomi, on the other hand, is still her small, fragile self, looking smaller than ever before. Gobji, on the other hand, is satisfied with their progression, telling him he has never seen a goblin evolve in such a short amount of time. With their new advancements, Gobkichi finally grows some balls, asking Goboru if he will fight him to test his new skills. This leads to a heated brawl outside, with both sides exchanging blows. As expected, however, Goboru emerges victorious, showing he is still the boss. After they finish their brawl, Goboru calls for Gobmi, asking her to bring him his crossbow. That is because a large pack of wolves are headed straight towards them, ripping apart anything that stands in their way. Goboru tells himself that although they are strong, they are the perfect opponents to test his new strength out on. With Gobmi starting the battle by shooting a wolf, the other two charge into battle and make quick work of the wolves. Once they are all defeated, Goboru finds the leader and decides to take a bite of him. This gives him even more skills, thus improving his skill set even further. With all of these wolves, he presents them to his squad, informing them, although he is giving them food, they need to learn their own ways to hunt. When he wakes up the next day, he finds a terrible event has taken place. He finds all of the human girls dead in the storage room, revealing they died from consuming poison. A few days after this event, Goboru spends his days training the goblins during the day and hunting strong monsters in the night. As the goblins train, more goblins emerge, causing concern for Goboru. He readies his sword to fight, but Gobji stops him, informing him they are the Raiders, aka the generation of goblins before himself. With none of them being evolved goblins, he wonders how they are so weak. Although they are weak, they brought back human girls, revealing the way goblins reproduce is by kidnapping humans and giving them their genes. Upon seeing this, Goboru asks if he can take care of them, but this only angers the older goblin. He prepares to fight against Goboru, informing him it's his prey. Before they start their fight, two goblin girls emerge, causing Gobji to introduce them to Goboru. The one on the left is Hobsato, and the one on the right is Hobsei. They propose that Goboru should fight against the older goblin to see who has what it takes to take care of the humans. As expected, Goboru takes him down with ease, telling him he needs to learn his place. This stuns the other goblins, wondering how he is able to use spider silk in combat. The two female goblins take notice of his skills and accept him as the leader, which is followed by the others. With this, Goboru guides the human girls into a storage room and tells them he will make sure to treat them well. Although he plans on saving them, he still doesn't plan on sparing them entirely. He informs them that they only need to give him information on this world in order to earn their rights to leave. They explain more about this world, including the fact that their husbands, who were warriors, ended up dying to the goblins' hands. On day 28, when he has almost been in the world for a month, he neglects his training and instead flirts with the girls every day. Although he is a goblin, he still acts like a human, playing the good guy despite having kidnapped the girls. He reveals that each one of them has their own strengths, but none of them are really useful. Following this, he goes outside to train the goblins, hoping he can help them evolve into a form like himself. Some would object to his training methods, but he made sure they followed the rules regardless. When day 31 arrives, he finally gets back to training himself, brawling against Gobkichi with his new weapons. Although Gobkichi has improved, he still is no match for the likes of Goboru. Everything was going normal until one night, when Goboru learned of something suspicious. With the other goblins getting impatient from not using the humans to their liking, Goboru was forced to slay them all. He displayed his strength to them, showing even if he is asleep, he plans on ruling the goblin pack. After he finishes killing the ill-intent goblins, he flirts with the girls, showing he can riz them up even as a goblin. To ensure that nobody else plans on disobeying his orders, he brings the goblins who objected to him into the open for everybody to see. Here he tortured them all, showing no mercy despite them technically being his parents. With this display of strength, he inflicted the thought of pain into his fellow goblins. The next day, to improve his skills, he decides to fight against a stronger opponent, that being a unicorn. Like usual, he is able to take it down, getting yet another power in the process. With one of these skills giving him the ability to strike 3 times in an instant, he becomes more powerful than ever before. That night, when going to sleep, his bed rocks a bit, revealing the red-haired girl wants to sleep with him. He ends up accepting her that night, doing as he pleases with her body. When he woke up, instead of just the red-haired beauty by his side, he also had Gobmi with him. After receiving his DNA, the red-haired girl ends up evolving into an advanced goblin herself. Because of this, he decided it's time he left the goblin squad alone for a bit to acquire even stronger skills. By using his magical prowess, he is able to take down the unicorn, which was previously tough, with ease. During his journey, he ended up spotting a trail of blood, causing him to follow it. This makes him remember what Gobji told him as a child, informing him of a strong monster in the northern woods. Despite being told to never try and fight it, he ventured into its territory regardless, attracting the large red bear. With it standing tall and mighty, he is unsure if he is strong enough to defeat it at first, but knows if he does take it down, he will become stronger than ever. His mind tells him to run, while his instincts crave for the skills the bear may have. Because of this craving, he fights the bear, leaving the others to wonder where he is. Gobmi looks around, but after investigating, she learns he has been nowhere to be seen within the village all day. This raises concerns among them, unknowing that Goboru is currently in battle. Meanwhile, Goboru ends up taking an arm off the bear, but still struggles to deliver a fatal blow. The battle goes on for a while until Goboru steps his game up, striking the bear in the head. He thinks this will be enough, but its hard skull protects it from the attack, forcing him to try another means of attack. He encases it in a spider's web, but this proves to be useless as well, the bear burning it with his fire magic. After it uses this attack, Goboru is forced on the retreat to heal his wounds, making him wonder what he can do. Ultimately, he decides upon using one of his strongest skills, countering the fire magic with his own water magic. He lands a good hit on the bear and thinks it's the end, but the bear tanks the hit. Although he got knocked back, he ended up lodging the sword within the bear's mouth, making him think he has a chance with its fire magic eliminated. Somehow he spawns in a large axe, which he uses to strike the bear from all directions. With his hunger for its skills driving him into madness, he fights without a care for his own well-being. The following day, he wakes up, missing an arm. But in return, he wins the battle. On the brink of death, Goboru digs into the bear's flesh, acquiring skills stronger than he ever before. Because of his feat, he ends up evolving into an even higher species as well, a high ogre. When Goboru gets back to the village after worrying them all night, he looks nothing like he previously did. With red stripes and 2 horns, he almost looks like a demon king. The human girl's reaction was as expected, thinking he is some new kind of monster coming to attack them. To start his chat with the humans, he presents the axe he used in battle, asking one of them to repair it. Following this, the 2 hot blonde girls ask Goboru for some extra help, informing him their task is hard with just then 2. Goboru wonders why kidnapped girls are so resilient in their duties. He doesn't realize this yet, but all of the girls have their eyes set on him, working their hardest only to please him. He then goes to chat with the weird nerdy girl who presents a poison to Goboru. She tells him that she made it for protection, but has no ill intent on using it to poison him or the others. Instead, she is stunned by his feats, complimenting his new appearance in the process. After he finishes flirting with her, the other 2 girls' gaze ends up impaling him, causing his mental state to erupt. A few days after this, when he tries to do his usual sparring against his friends, they end up getting defeated with ease. Because of this, he ends up having to heal their wounds, showing he is still his usual self. Gobkichi in particular feels pathetic for falling behind Goboru so much, having hunted with him his whole life. Following this, Goboru goes to make some new clothes where he is accompanied by yet another female. As he flirts with her, he eventually reveals that she has stolen his book. With his increase in strength, he actually had a fun day, but this would soon end. The very next day, Hosebi confronts him bringing a small girl, asking Goboru to heal her. Goboru tries his best, but is unable to do much, so he brings her to the alchemist. This heals her, and once she wakes up, she introduces herself as Returner. She tells Goboru that recently she was attacked by humans, hoping to steal the gem off of her head. This makes Goboru realize she is a liability rather than a help, so he wonders if he should keep her around. His decision is soon decided, however, when Returner starts begging Goboru to keep her safe. He explains that although it's nice to help her, his real goal is a treasure hidden deep within a dungeon that needs her help to acquire. Because of this, he decides to keep her around and call the strongest goblins in hopes of looting the treasury. Before he heads out, he makes sure to get the best weapons imaginable, explaining to the others he will keep them safe. Later that day, he finally ends up heading out, hoping to negotiate with any adventurers he may find. With the first group of adventurers treating him like a random mob, they are stunned to see him easily deflect their attacks. Goboru explains to them that he isn't in the business of murder, so he will give them a chance to leave before he gets angry. Despite his kind words, the adventurers still charge at him, trying everything in their power to take him down. With their puny attacks, however, they stand no chance against Goboru, allowing him to easily evade any attack. That is until one of the mages sends in their strongest attack, thus angering Goboru. Filled with rage, he tells them his patience has run out, so he calls upon his servants to smack them around. He follows this by stripping them down to the bone and taking a bite of each of them to acquire their skills. On top of this, he takes a bite of their items to acquire the skills that come with it. Following this, he heads to the treasury where he finds the owner of the area, sitting atop a throne. Returner explains that although he looks like a corpse, he is able to speak with her through spiritual communication. She then tells Goboru that because he is looting her vault, she will also lose her power, so she vanishes into thin air, leaving only the gem behind. Without hesitation, Goboru eats her stone, acquiring the skills she has in the process. After this happens, he loots the treasury clean, leaving not a single ounce of gold behind. He also decides to burn away the old wizard, but upon doing so, he acquired a new piece of armor. Once he puts it on, it stabs him all over and gives him a new set of skills, allowing him to rotate his arm in any way imaginable. He then heads back to his home base and decides to throw a party in celebration of their great feats. The next couple days, he spends his time making items to give to each of the goblins by using the loot he acquired from the treasury. He himself managed to acquire a legendary great spear, it being the second highest rank weapon imaginable. Now that he has all of these weapons, he wonders if it's about time they start spreading their wings outside of the village. To do this first, he needs to find a good spot to set up camp. During this journey, he decides to take down any monster he finds along the way, acquiring their skills in the process. During his journey, he stumbled upon a dryad forest containing various beautiful women. Although they have the best looks, they have ill intentions, forcing Goboru to proceed with caution. To start, he allows one of them to feel up to him, hoping he can enjoy them to the fullest before getting down to business. He reveals that in his past life, he was a hopeless virgin, so it's difficult for even someone as strong as him to resist. Eventually, he falls into temptation and uses his ultimate skill to get a power longer than anything else in this world. He ended up smashing the dryad and acquiring a new skill in the process. Once he finishes things up with her, he leaves, hoping to one day come back to satisfy himself again. This leads to him fighting various new monsters on his journey, until he eventually heads back home with more goblins to train. When he got back, however, it seemed like the females knew what he did, showing their discomfort. With him being unsure of what to do, he decides to go talk with the only other weirdo in the group, the nerdy girl. She finally spells it out to him, telling him they are jealous after seeing the hickeys all over his neck. She tells him that she also feels the same way, moving in to give Goboru a kiss. Once he recognizes her feelings, he decides to also indulge in her nerdy beauty, but is stopped before he can do anything. Gobmi sees him and goes to tell him he can't do anything with her without including her. Following this, all of the other girls emerge, telling Goboru they also want to become one with him. When Goboru wakes up after doing all this, he senses a group of enemies steadily approaching his village. As the beast of the group, he walks outside to greet them, where he finds a group of prideful elves, taking pity on Goboru's group. After some explaining, Goboru sums it up as the elves asking for his group's help in exchange for some money. With humans advancing on their territory, they are in need of help, expecting the goblins to be sacrifices for them to launch ranged attacks. Upon hearing this, Goboru tells them he has no intentions of helping them, explaining he doesn't care at all about their clan. He tells them that if humans are entering the forest, then he will die with them himself, not needing the elves' help. He tells them that this is his forest, not theirs, showing who the boss here is. With this, they all run away with their legs tucked, giving Goboru the peace he desires. A few days pass since this, and Goboru spends his time purifying slimes to acquire their abilities. One of these abilities in particular is creating a replication of himself in the form of a blood body. This gives him the idea to sneak a peek on the girls, dressing them up in fancy clothes first. After he does this, he sends his replica to watch over the forest, where he learns the elves have returned. Like last time, however, he scared them away, not giving them a single chance to reason with Goboru. Once he inflicts fear into them, he captures them and brings them into his cave. Here he asks what their deal is for bugging him all the time. They tell him they need help, but Goboru has no intentions of doing such, telling them if they want to survive, then they need to work for him. On top of this, he makes sure to take a bite of each of them, acquiring their skills in the process. Now with them trained up a little bit, he tells the female ones they will be his slaves, causing the elder to get excited. He starts throwing it back until Goboru gets angry and tells the senile old man that he can't just do as he pleases. The elder then begins begging Goboru to give him some action, explaining he has been holding back for too long. Upon hearing this, Goboru decides to let him treat himself to the elven girls a little bit. The next day, Gobkichi does his usual training until he also evolves into the higher form. With a new appearance scarier than any before, Goboru applauds his efforts. Instead of becoming a high ogre like Goboru, he ended up becoming a special variant. With skin being blessed by the demigod of flame and muscles blessed by the god of war, he is incredibly strong. Because of this power-up, he asks Goboru if he wants to spar with him yet again to test his skills. They then head outside to begin their fight, where Gobkichi is actually able to withstand an attack. With that being said, he still doesn't measure up to Goboru's strength. That night, after a hard battle against him, he goes to rest, but is stopped when a strange man approaches him. He hands Goboru an item he has never seen before, making him wonder what it was. Following this, he is guided by one of the chicks he banged, Gob, explaining he needs to see something. She shows him a group of various goblins, informing him they have all learned powerful magic. When Goboru goes to talk with them, the goblins explain they are actually his brothers, being born on the same day as him. On top of this, Hobsei, the strongest mage of the group, has also leveled up. Although her appearance hasn't changed much, she has turned into a species called a half-lord, with markings on her body similar to Goboru. He wonders just how strong she is. Because of his curiosity, he asks to see her power, so she takes him outside to display it. With fire magic powerful enough to shake a kingdom, she tells him she is 10 times stronger than she was before. Goboru knows that although she is strong, she can still become stronger, her only being a half-lord currently. Goboru wonders why everyone is leveling up so fast, but eventually realizes it's because of his harsh training. With him forcing all of the goblins to train their hardest, some of them end up rebelling against him. He learns of this when heading home from a day out hunting to find a group of low-level goblins telling him they can't do his training anymore. They tell him they have been trying to get stronger but haven't seen any progress, so they have to leave to regain their pride. Surprisingly, Goboru doesn't care at all, urging them to stay safe out there. As a parting gift, he gives them a powerful knife along with a drop of his blood. A few days after this, when he was out exploring the woods, he finds an orc carrying a human to his base. Goboru decided to intrude on this, taking the orc down and capturing the human. After these events, he heads back home to flirt with the nerd girl who presents him with some booze to party with. The next day, he explains the situation, informing the goblins that the previous generation all left the village. Although this happened, none of them seem to care, showing they only care about helping Goboru. Days go by, and eventually Goboru creates a communication device by planting a drop of his blood into an earpiece. This made it easier for them to discuss plans and make moves on monsters, making it much easier to subdue them. On day 58 of his life in the New World, Goboru decides to use one of his monster tamer skills to acquire some pets. He uses the wolves as dogs and other animals as mounts. He gets new visitors, so he allows them to train alongside him and the humans. The red-haired girl in particular shows her strength by taking down 3 kobolds on her own. Once she finishes fighting these kobolds, he flirts with her until she reveals something important happened. She informs him she got a new job class, so she would like to try it out. With her evolving into something called Noir Soldat, she has a similar ability to Goboru, where she gets stronger as she eats monsters. A few days go by after this, and when Goboru wakes up, he finds a bunch of kobolds being chased by a group of undead. With him never fighting these monsters before, he is unsure how to deal with them, starting off with physical attacks. This doesn't work, so he thinks of where they are coming from, ultimately learning there is another monster summoning them in. With this knowledge, he heads to the back of the pack and takes on the strongest of the skeletons. Although it was the strongest, it is still no match for Goboru, giving him new skills in the process. Because he saved the kobolds yet again, They decide to pledge allegiance to Goboru, becoming his slaves in the process. On his 61st day in this new world, he decided to take Gobkichi hunting alongside him with him, acquiring this new form. Upon their investigation, he finds a group of humans attempting to capture the elven princess. Instead of helping them, he decides to watch idly at first to see whether the princess is fine. After he sees she is indeed a dime, he reconsiders helping them once he sees the elves get defeated before him. He decides to make quick work of the bandits, saving the elven princess in the process. With some of them dying, he prays over them, hoping they won't be mad at him in the afterlife. Although it sucks they died, he isn't too sad, having eaten a piece of the elves and bandits to acquire their skills. Once he brings the princess back to his cave, he wakes her up. She thinks that he is an enemy as well, so she starts tweaking. But she soon calms down when Goboru presents her with some tea. With this calming her down, she starts asking questions to Goboru, annoying him in the process. He smacks her away and reminds her that he has nothing to do with her, demanding she calm down. He then tells her there is a traitor among her clan, making it easy for the elves to be killed. This brings her to tears, thinking her life will change forever. Later that night, the elder goes to meet with Goboru, throwing it back yet again while asking if he can hit it. Goboru denies his request, telling him to go fool around with one of the captured elf girls instead. He then spends the next day flirting with the princess, asking her why she has wings popping out of her back. She explains that she is a high elf, thus giving her the wings, informing him it's a unique trait among high elves. After hearing everything she has to say, he follows her to her village in hopes of finding more baddies, but is sadly guided to meet with the ugly king. With a messed up face, he looks at Goboru, making him cringe a bit. Regardless, he gets down to business, telling the king he expects a reward for saving his daughter. He expects something trash, but to his surprise, they actually give him something decent. He takes this magic item and tells him he will give him a reward for passing his test. He informs him that he knows the human's movements by deploying his blood bodies throughout the forest. Because of his exchange of information, the king presents him with some more goods, including a few barrels of liquor. He takes this back and gets absolutely wasted that night, hoping to make some babies in the process. When he wakes up, he expects to find Gobmi's usual self by him, but to his surprise, she has leveled up, now becoming more mature. She is the hottest goblin in the village, drawing all of the men's attention. Goboru, on the other hand, wonders why she looks so similar to someone she remembers. Gobe, on the other hand, ended up evolving into a more bulky figure, giving her an increase in strength. Hobesato, another one of the girls he slept with, ended up evolving into a half-blood lord, becoming hotter in the process. This makes Goboru wonder why all of the girls are getting tattoos similar to his own. Gobji, on the other hand, looks at his granddaughters with lustful eyes, wondering when he will get a piece of them. The following day, Goboru decides to start his tactical operation in solving things with the elves. He decides to dress them up to his liking, with hopes of also giving them the tattoo that the other girls have. The male elves, on the other hand, were forced to train their hardest and assist him in any tasks he may have. To help with their training, Goboru decided to spawn in undead after acquiring the skill to do so from the previous undead. A few days go by, and on day 65, he is able to spawn in various undeads with various different classes. Although they are strong, they are still unable to withstand the outside heat. The rest of the villagers, on the other hand, are improving at a steady rate. He then brings some of his trusted companions to build a new base, while sending the others to go hunt. With everyone doing their own job and contributing to the village in their own ways, things are really looking on the good side for Goboru. One night after fighting a monster, he ends up acquiring an axe that is stronger than his previous one. He then decides to reward the girl who made him this item to show his gratitude. Gobkichi, on the other hand, has a lot on his mind, telling Goboru he is in love with one of his side chicks. He tells Goboru that ever since she evolved, he has had a hard time resisting his urges, so he wants Goboru's help. As the Rizzler, Goboru makes sure to guide him into doing the deed, urging him to make a move tonight. Then later that night, Gobkichi goes to confess to her, asking her to become his woman. His feelings end up reaching her, and the two make love that night. The next morning, Gobkichi is fired up more than ever, showing his strength to Goboru. Goboru reveals that he ended up pulling a few strings during that day to make them more likely to get together. As days went on, Goboru continued to defeat monsters and acquire skills until one day when he acquired an armor skill, with it being durable enough to resist almost any attack he questions, whether he needs it or not, already being strong as is. He then tries out some more skills, including one that allows him to fly around. With him using so many skills, he gets exhausted that night, so he eats good. On day 69, it starts raining, making him do what he previously did during the rain, make a new weapon. While this weapon is being made, he decides to fight against the red-haired girl, knowing it will take time to make a new sword. Then once he finishes things up with her, he gets to work on helping the smith girl to make a new weapon. The blonde chicks, on the other hand, continue being good housewives, cooking Goboru meals every night. He also didn't forget about the nerd girl, so he pays her a visit, getting some brain in the process. While doing so, the other girls catch him, so he ends up having a full night. The next day, instead of his usual average awakening, the elves approach him, asking to see their brethren. Goboru shows them the elves and reveals they have evolved into dark elves by receiving his tattoo. The elven leader then gets to the main point as to why they came here, informing Goboru that there are still enemies in the forest they are unable to deal with. He asks Goboru to help him, so he agrees, handing the elf a communication device in the process. Little do the elves know he already knows of their plans along with the humans' plans. Because of this, he decides to call everyone up, telling them it's time for war. On his 71st day within this new world, he decides to explore outside of the forest, riding along a magical beast. While he does, he remembers being hired by the elf for his first job as a mercenary. With various spellcasters, berserks, and monsters, he is confident his group can take on even a dragon. Upon arriving at the human base, he broke their barrier with ease by using his magic. He then got Dami and Spellside to use their own magic to bombard the group with their own spells. While this happened, he summoned a skeleton army that he sent forward to fight for his stead. Despite these advances, they were still unable to restrain them because of one specific girl. With blonde hair, he realizes that she is definitely the commander of the humans, so he screams out to her. This makes her realize he is summoning the skeletons, so she orders her group to direct their attacks at him. Although this may seem like a good plan, this was his goal all along. Right before she strikes him, he uses his powers to throw her back onto her knees. He tells her that he likes what he sees, so he will claim her as his own. She protests this, showing hostility, but this only fires him up some more. He tells her that he likes that attitude of hers and he will fix it in bed. She then claims that will never happen, her going to defeat him here. Little does she know, however, she is fighting against the Chad of Chads, the ultimate alpha. While he messes around with her, his other companions take down the remaining soldiers until there is just her and the other hot girls left. Whether it's by using magic or raw strength, the soldiers are no match against enemies with superior strengths. In the meantime, the blonde night girl continues to strike at him until he eventually gets tired of playing around. He causes her own companion to send a powerful blow, but instead of using her as a shield, he blocks the attack and saves her, winning her trust. The others watch this play out and realize just how powerful he really is. Now, with this out of the way, he wonders what to do with this cute blonde knight. He then informs everyone in his group it's time to leave, but before he does, he makes sure to take a bite of all the dead soldiers, acquiring their skills. He then goes to meet with the elf leader where they throw a party to celebrate his success. While they eat, he eventually gets bored, so he goes to check in on the human girls he captured. With him injecting his alpha seed within them, he hopes they will also evolve like the others. The next morning, with the girls being rizzed over by him, he gives them the earpieces as well, welcoming them into his harem. With this idea coming from the elven leader, he thought the girls would resist him, but it was surprisingly easy to win them over. Because of this earpiece, not only is he able to communicate with the girls, but also learn the humans' plans. He learns that they are marching towards them with 500 troops, making it the perfect meal. Even though they are strong, he knows with his manpower he has more than enough. He only wishes there were more girls within the group so that he could get more allies. To start his attack, he decides to block the road behind them and send massive boulders onto them. He finished up their forces by trapping them into a hole and shooting arrows at them. While all of this happened, the commander finally gave them orders, making them build a wall around them in the moment. This causes the battle to be halted and move on to Plan B. He sends in Ogrekichi to lead a charge, hoping he can just break down all of the walls. As he approaches, the humans send various magical attacks, but they prove ineffective against someone like Ogrekichi. While he battles against the humans, he encounters the commander of the group, who is unlike the rest. With him being able to stand toe-to-toe with Ogrekichi in close combat, he decides to capture him rather than kill him. After this was done, he ate as many of them as he could except for the red-haired man. He proposes to get this guy as a slave, noticing how strong he was in battle. While this happens, one of his side chicks comes up to him, asking to have his baby. On day 74, the captured humans are seen sitting around within a prison cell, wishing they could leave already. Later that day, Rue calls the red-haired captain to talk with him, asking why they are so insistent on fighting the elves. He reminds him of all their previously failed attempts and asks why they keep sacrificing people. The red-haired captain then explains that there is a vial within the elven forest that his king desperately wants. Meanwhile, Eartha digs into the wall until she strikes gold. It's not actually gold, but you could consider it gold with it being a hot spring. Because of this, Rao drops all other plans and digs it out, making a big bath for his people. While the girls take a bath, they realize it's lonely with no men, so they invite Rue inside. The following day, he decides to raise his members' skills by training them with more advanced fighting techniques. To help with their training, he simulated fake battles to help them better understand how to move in certain formations. While this happens, the humans wonder why they are being used to train like they are monsters. The red-haired man, on the other hand, gets tired of fighting such weak creatures, so he approaches Rue asking for more of a challenge. He tells him he will fight him directly, but he makes sure to buff him up to make it fair. Even with these buffs, he is able to easily overpower him, knocking him around like a dog. After defeating him, he heals him and allows him to fight against Ogre Kichi. Once he is beaten around a few times, he begins to realize that this monster coup is more than just a random establishment. He notices how well they are treated, so he pledges his loyalty to Rao, hoping to get the same treatment. He quickly accepts his request and makes him one of the commanders in his army. He assigns her to train the red-haired girl, knowing they will surely get along together thanks to their same colored hair. A few days after this, some of the humans try to escape, but as you can expect, they are quickly caught. Here, Goboru proposes to the elven leader to let him try out the vial that they are so desperately after. Upon drinking it, he gets the ability to regenerate his injuries within an instant, along with passing it to anyone else. By giving one of the injured humans a single drop of his blood, they are healed, instantly making him realize how much he powered up. On day 81, Rao started getting prepared for his battle against the humans. He started his fight by eliminating the commander with a single strike. He didn't stop here, however, producing an infinite number of spears to kill all the humans. Followed by his other people, the battle was over in only 20 minutes, making everyone a bit let down. The following day, Rao went around the elven forest, looking for a new babe to take under his wing. He decides to bring a couple of his current chicks, hoping they can help him with his pick. Then suddenly the elven chief comes out with his daughter, making Rao wonder if she is the one. Before he can spit any game, the chief tells him that it's thanks to him that they are able to live in peace. Not only is he thankful, but he also wants him to go speak with the humans to attempt and stop them from trying any more attacks. He agrees to this, so he heads to the nearest human camp alongside the blonde chick, hoping she can reason with them. She proposes that he use her as a hostage to try and trick them if he needs to. He also reveals that there are 5 gods in this world, with 2 of them providing him a blessing. He thinks they will notice his sinister attitude. A couple days later, he finally arrives at the human camp where he finds over 2,000 soldiers. Just in case, he brought his own army with him, thinking it would surely end up being a big battle. Before he headed into battle, his human minions told him that this time the army has some of the strongest warriors, making it not an easy task. Although most would get scared from this, Rue only sees it as more of a challenge, summoning his skeletons in preparation for the battle. He then marches straight into the enemy's lair, showing no remorse. He sends all the skeletons into battle, and they begin chopping down enemies like butter. As they fight, a large light emerges, forcing the skeletons to all die, or so they thought. Before they all evaporate, the skeletons get surrounded by red blood, causing them to get even stronger. Now, with the soldiers in a panic, Rue emerges before them and begins his own attack. While this happens to some green-haired nerd who happens to be one of the strongest warriors, a brave is seen complaining about the fight. He wishes to go home already, asking the soldiers why they can deal with something like him. Despite these remarks, he still finds it like a fun challenge to go fight. As this happens, Ro finishes up defeating the soldiers, eventually taking a bite of one of them. He tries to eat in peace, but the green-haired brave emerges and introduces himself as Rugald. With him having control over bugs, he tells Rue he doesn't like being called that. He shows that, although he doesn't like this name, he is indeed a bug himself, transferring his eyes to bug eyes. Rugald then realizes that Rue is the one taking out all of the soldiers they are sending, so he knows he needs to take him down. Rugald then asks him which god he has a blessing from, but Rao refuses to tell him. He gives him the silent treatment, showing he isn't one to be messed with. Then suddenly Rugald pulls out a vial of maggots and throws them over all the dead soldiers. This wakes them up, causing Rugald to explain what the difference between heroes and braves are. He informs him that he is called a brave because he has no morals and uses everything at his disposal to fight. He then transforms all the dead soldiers into insects, giving him a whole new army. The bugs then surround Rue, but as expected, they don't do any damage. Rue takes them all out like nothing, asking Rugal if that's all he's got. With this being said, Rugal takes control of the bugs himself and starts controlling them against Rue. This doesn't seem to work, so he steps his game up once again, this time summoning a large centipede. With its large body, Rao is unable to avoid its attack, causing Rugal to jump with glee. He informs Rao that it's a famous monster who destroyed multiple countries, promising him he will die. He also explains that this monster has a poison, forcing Rao to lose his strength. As this happens, the others fight their own soldiers, wondering if Rue is all right. Meanwhile, Rue is placed down before Rugal out cold, hoping to land a surprise attack. While he acts dead, Rugal looks around the area for his soldiers, but soon realizes of Rue's advancements. He strikes him and forces Rugal on the defensive, making him wonder how he is still alive. With these events, Rugal decides to whip out his strongest weapon this time, promising him it won't be something he can withstand. Before the final fight, Rugal reintroduces himself, this time explaining he is the 7th strongest person in the kingdom. As he explains, Rao strikes him but ends up revealing his secret weapon. With him having tentacles that suck up others' blood, he is able to power up exponentially. This excites Rue, so he fights with a smile on his face, enjoying every moment. As the battle goes on, Rugal asks Rue if he has experienced an epic awakening just yet, assuming he hasn't. This makes Rue wonder what it is, so he decides to power up himself in order to force him to tell him. He uses one of his acquired spells to put on a bug outfit, allowing him to fly towards Rugal. With this new outfit, he is able to easily overpower Rugal, throwing him to the ground. As this happens, the others finally finish with their own fights, running to Rue's side for support. Following this, Rue tells Rugal it's time to end things here, but Rugal has other plans. He exits his bug suit and begins running away, making Rue enraged. He tries to chase, but the bug suit continues fighting, making him lose sight of Rugal. Now with the battle over, his girlfriends rush to his side to comfort him. Rue reveals that while he was fighting against Rugal, he sent an assassin to speak their demands to the commander of the humans. By placing the vial with the elf's medicine in his pocket, he demands they stop their pointless attacks, vanishing in the process. After this, the commander informs them to retreat, revealing he has acquired the medicine, with this man being the future king and brother to the sick princess. In need of the potion, they all pull out from battle. Following this battle, Rue holds a funeral for the 30 fallen soldiers he had on his side. He vowed not to let any more of his companions die, hoping to become the leader they wish he was. On day 84, Rao starts his day by waking up to one of his side chick's legs being spread. With the stench coming from them being horrendous, he asks her what she is doing in his bed, her being unrecognizable with such a stench. Following this, he meets with one of the randoms in his village who heals various people. With one of his boys evolving into a Saint Lord, they are able to heal pretty much any wound imaginable. On top of this, he has the ability to make a shield that Rue is able to train on. Now back in the present, the fishy girl tries to shake some around him, but he is appalled. With her recently turning into a ghoul, she carries the smell of all the bodies she eats on the daily. Because of this, he considers throwing her out, but remembers the time when he was around her. With her having multiple eyes on her back, she has always been an ugly-looking girl. Now with her getting rid of these eyes, he thought she would look better, but she only evolved into an even weirder form. With her now having eyes across her entire body, he decides not to get in bed with her anymore. On the other hand, the regular soldiers all ended up evolving into ogres. Because of their evolution, they are super loyal to Rao, making him feel a bit creeped out. He then heads to meet with the random dogs he took in, only to find they have also evolved. In particular, their leader has evolved into a dog man who is now capable of speech. He also happens to resemble an old samurai, giving him memory of his past world. Following this, he meets with the Gramps to figure out what happened to everybody and why they are changing. He explains that by being around stronger people, they get an evolved sense on how to fight and thus evolving themselves. In the end, he wonders if this is a good thing or bad thing, with everyone's personality changing a bit. He then heads outside to meet with his slaves, where he informs them all they are free. He tells them that if they want to stay, then they can, but they need to work just like how the goblins do. This angers the slaves, claiming that they are much superior to the lowly goblins. The two races begin arguing about who is more important, but Rao knows that the goblins will be loyal to him until the day they die. With this being said, he decides to tell them again they can either work or leave. Upon saying this, they propose a duel against the leader, claiming that if they win, then they should be able to stay as they please. Rao emerges and informs them he is the leader, asking them all to come at him at once. Without second thought, the randoms begin unleashing their true powers, causing various people to come watch. Gramps decides to join as well, sniffing each of his wives in the process. Back to the fight, Rao takes on their attacks head-on, and counters in the process. With them getting slapped around like goblins, he proves his strength to them, thus forcing them to obey his orders. This doesn't stop them from attacking again, however, with some furry man striking him. He knocks Roy back, making him think he is the boss now. Ro quickly re-emerges and informs him that he allowed that attack in order to see his strength. In the process, he knocks the man back, showing him who the boss is. With another man thinking he is important around here, he tells Ru's wife that he will claim her as his own. This enrages Ru, so he also beats that man up, showing him no mercy. With all of this being done, he asks if anyone has any complaints now, hoping they will be loyal. One of the slaves bows down to him and shows he is now in love with Ru after seeing this strength. Being that Ru doesn't swing that way, he beats the man up yet again. Later that evening, he gives everyone a role, hoping they can help develop his land even further. Whether it's training or even blacksmiths, he makes sure everyone can get something done. One girl is offered the blacksmith job, but she tells him that there is no way she can make anything of use. He informs her that it's to make something good or become a slave again, so she stops complaining. This gives Rao some peace, so he tries out some of his newly acquired skills that he has yet to use. With one of them giving him vampire-like abilities, it limits him from going outside. That night he bangs all of the girls in the village, making sure to plant his seed and help them evolve. The next day he decides it's about time that he riz up some of the elven girls as well. It takes a couple of days to get down, but he eventually gets strong enough to confidently do whatever he wants to the people. On day 87, he is approached by the dwarven blacksmiths who present him with a new weapon. Because it looks like trash, he is reluctant to take it, but upon further inspection he realizes it's not a bad piece. Later that day, he decides to wander around the forest, looking for something interesting. After some time, he finds the girl he left in the woods who is missing him dearly. The two of them have some fun and make love, causing Ru to get an earful when he gets home. His wives ask why he is covered in kiss marks, knowing he was sneaking around with someone. The next day, he heads to the farmlands to prepare some seeds that he was given by his side chick. He sows the ground and ensures that everyone around him does the same, making it become easy to do. As he sows, some of his human wives approach, informing him they made lunch. Now, on day 89, he sent some of the villagers back to their own homes, knowing it would be good to expand his influence. With some people being hypnotized thanks to his wife, he will have access to spies within all the nearby kingdoms. On top of this, the human armies are all retreating, thus allowing him to more easily infiltrate their lands. That night, to celebrate, the elven chief calls Ru to invite him to a party. Here he gets his daughter to dance around, putting on a show for all to see. Roy watches with lustful eyes, wondering if he should make a move on her and see what happened to elves with his seed. Before he does, however, he needs to listen to the elven chief yap up a storm, telling him random fairy tales. In the end, he tells Rao it's thanks to him they are able to live in peace. The following day, when he gets back to the base, he finds Earth with some magical stones dug up. He is unsure what to do with them, but knows that they will surely come in handy one day. Previously, the doll girl had been made out of one of these.